Okay, so after we play our game, we get down to business. Now, many of you think that since I'm the youth minister, I'm the oracle of all teenage knowledge, and that's not true. None of us are. When you have problems with them talking at home, that's probably just because they don't want to talk about it yet. They will when they're ready, and it's the same way in youth group. Sometimes one person feels ready to talk, and another time they don't. And sometimes we have a person that always wants to talk, and that's okay too. So anyway, the truth is that I learn a lot more from them than they probably do from me or Lita, who is my trusty helper every week. And I'm going to share with you some of the things that I've learned from them. Number one is, when you dig into God's Word, you need to be comfortable. And they like their couches, and we usually have a pop and a snack, which we won't do today because it might make some people upset. But in the youth room, that's great. And we get comfortable and we dig into His Word. Number two is, everybody has a story. We've been looking at that a lot this year. Everybody has a story. They have a story. You have a story. I have lots of stories, it seems like. And so we've been doing a series called I Am Second, where we watch a video of a person who has a story about the time that they realized that they were not first in their lives, that God was, and they placed themselves second so that God could do His work through them. And then we've carried that out. And most recently, we took the ninth graders to the cities, and we went to the Peace House, which is basically a homeless drop-in center. It's not where they sleep. There's always hot coffee and something to eat, but they come together, and they do have a devotional every time, and they tell their stories. And when we went, let's see, who went on that trip? Annabelle, Jesse, Nicholas, and Seth Whitcomb also. And so we went there, and it was hard for them to sit in a room with 40 people who were homeless, who didn't have a home. And being an extrovert, I didn't have a problem with that, so I was starting a conversation with lots and lots of people. And Annabelle, she kind of went out of her comfort zone, and she got it going, and Nick was moving around a little bit. Jesse and Seth, however, being shy to begin with, had a hard time with this. And it just happened that there was a man there that was probably in his 50s, and he obviously, what he was contributing to their group devotion was very knowledgeable about the Bible. And he was one of the homeless people. And so anyway, he was talkative, and I told him, I have these two guys over here that are finding it hard to start a discussion. Would you go over there and talk to them? And so he did. He went over and started a conversation, and he's drawing them in, and I'm continuing to visit, and I come back around and I hear him telling them there's a difference between personality and character. You are born with your personality. It is who you are. Character, you don't want to develop quite so quickly, because character is something that you grow. Character is who you become. And so I was like, Larry, you know so much about this. And obviously you know a lot about the Bible. How do you know all of this? And he said, well, when I was doing time, I spent a lot of time in the prison library. And this kind of got their attention. They're like, but what? There's a story here. And so anyway, he said, I went in there and I read the Bible, and any religious tract that a pastor left there, I read and I studied, and I did that the whole time I was there. I'm like, well, why were you incarcerated, Larry? He goes, well, I was charged with first-degree murder. That really got their attention. That got my attention. And so I said, what happened? And he was very willing to talk about it. He said, I killed a guy when I was 14 years old. And he said, I don't know what made me do it. He said, he was my friend. I kind of liked him. And he goes, I think I had demons inside of me. And I didn't question that. I don't know if it was the demons of drug abuse or mental illness or just demons. Who am I to question that? But he said some parents, when they have a kid like that, know what to do. Mine didn't. And I was in prison for 31 years. So, and since then, he's been on the streets. And he said, life on the streets is hard, but I'm free. And so, boom, big story. And here's this guy that's homeless, that is nothing, that has his own ministry. He's ministering to the people that come to the Peace House with him, and he definitely ministered to us that day, because we realized these people have a story. They have a big story, and it can touch us as much as we can touch them. So, back to I Am Second. It is a movement. If you go, I went to Nashville recently to a youth convention, and there are billboards all over, and you might see bumper stickers, I am second. What does that mean? Well, it's a movement where celebrities and even more common people than celebrities sit in a big white chair, and they allow themselves to be filmed while they're telling their story as to when they became second. And the one that we're going to see today is of Michael W. Smith. And many of you should have heard of him. He's probably one of the most popular singer-songwriters of Christian music. We sing a lot of songs. My God is an Awesome God was written by Michael W. Smith. And we will sing one today after, a little later on, that he has written. So right now we're going to watch Michael W. Smith and his I Am Second video. The one key piece that you missed on there during one of the silent blips was after he was delivered, and he said, what you didn't get was, he said, I changed my life by holding myself accountable and surrounding myself with wonderful people. And so I think that's an important part that we missed. Otherwise, you got the basic message. So after we watch I Am Second, we dig into our scriptures. And we're going to be reading Matthew 25, 31 through 46. And I believe we have that on the screen as well. And if you'll grab one of these mics, one that reaches down here, we'll have our readers read. Are you first? Read about 25% of it and then pass it on.
Okay, so Matthew 25, 31 through 46. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, Come, you that are blessed by the Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the fountain of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. For I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me.
I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when it was we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?
And the king will say, I tell you the truth, when you did it to one of your least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. Then the king will turn to those on the left and say, Away with you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry, and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, and you didn't give me a drink.
I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me, naked, and you did not give me clothing, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they will also answer, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not take care of you? Then he will answer them, Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteousness into eternal life.
So one of the other things that I've learned from kids, and actually after teaching I learned this quite a while ago, but if you're going to read the Bible, it has to apply to today. Otherwise, it's like Charlie Brown's teacher going, wah, 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 wah. So we take these scriptures and we kind of dig in. And so, at the judgment, the king came and he put who on his right side? The believers. And he put who on his left side? The unbelievers, or the goats. And he said to the believers, he showed them the kingdom and said, this is yours, you have deserved this. And they're like, what have we done? And so, to paraphrase in teenage language, he says, when I forgot my lunch money, you gave me some. That's right. When I forgot my water bottle for sports, what did you do? You gave me yours, or you let me drink out of yours, right? When my mom kicked me out of the house because she was really mad at me, what did you do? Yeah, you invited me over to stay at your house. When I forgot to wear a coat to the football game, you let me share your blanket. When I was sick, you texted me and Twittered and sent funny things on Facebook to make me feel better. And when I was being bullied at school, what did you do? You stood up for me. And the believers went, huh? I don't get that. I never saw you in those situations. And the king will say, whenever you did these things for someone overlooked and ignored, you did them for me. And then the king will look at the unbelievers, or the goats, and show them where they're headed. And they're going to be, King, why do I have to do that? I didn't do anything. Just like a kid would say, right? I didn't do anything. And the king will say, exactly. You didn't do anything. When I was thirsty, you didn't give me a drink. When I was hungry, you didn't give me anything to eat. When I was cold, you didn't give me anything to warm myself up with. And when I was homeless, you didn't give me a room. And when I was bullied, you turned your back and sometimes even joined in. Whenever you failed to do these things for someone who was being overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did that to me. So the last thing I want to tell you about these kids that sit up here in front of you is that more importantly, and I see it more and more and more, they want to make a difference. They want to make a difference in the lives of people around them. They're becoming aware that everyone has a story, and they're becoming aware that Jesus wants them to be his hands and their feet, and that they must become second to do that. They go on mission trips, and they learn how to help people. They're going to learn this summer about sustainable farming so that there is food for the homeless, and that the homeless actually help produce that. And they've learned about racism, and they've learned about immigration, and they're learning about the issues that are facing people today, and they want to help. And then they come home and they do what they can. They go to the community service center and they help stock groceries and hang up clothes and do whatever they can to be so that the community center can be prepared for the people who come in and they need help. And my belief is that they will continue to do this throughout their lives, because they're a generation who wants to make a difference, and they will make a difference. Now, as we move into our prayer time, I'd like Beyond Grace to lead us in the song Above All, which is written by Michael W. Smith. And if you have a prayer request, you can hold that up and the ushers will bring them to me. So go ahead, Beyond Grace.